and welcome to Leaders in Conversation. I'm Annie Townend, podcast host and partner to executives, leaders and their teams, co-founder of Collaboration Equation and of the podcast Finding Your Collaborative Edge with Lucy Kidd. Leaders in Conversation is the podcast in which leaders weave together the threads of their life and leadership stories, the people, the places and experiences that have shaped them, their values, beliefs, passion and purpose, to encourage and inspire you to be even more confident and courageous in your leadership. If you're not already, please do subscribe to the podcast, review and share it. Thank you. My guest today is Jenny Latham, executive coach and passionate advocate for staying human in a digital world. The title of our conversation is How Do We Get Our Human Needs Met in a Digital World? Welcome, Jenny.
Oh, thank you, Annie. It is so lovely to be in conversation with you.
I'm very much looking forward to having a meaningful conversation in which I know you're going to share your insights into how our modern world is leaving us hyper-connected but under-bonded, and why the quality of connection matters more than the quantity. And something that you've got involved in, I know quite recently, the smartphone-free childhood movement that is instrumental in protecting our children's mental, social and emotional health. And finally, the importance for us all of identifying our own social needs and being intentional.
Yes, I'm looking forward to sharing all of that.
We had the good fortune of meeting in a small breakout group in our work as executive coaches with EY, working within the senior civil service. And I remember then that we made a connection and had a meaningful conversation. And that's how we have stayed connected with you, becoming one of the collaborators and part of our collaboration equation. And you've also joined myself, Natalie Sherring and Lucy Kidd on a number of our Walking Partnerships days. And again, we've always deepened our human connection when we've met and had meaningful conversations.
Yeah, exactly. And I was just so pleased to meet someone else who shares the love of the walk and talk as well, because that's a real foundation for me of actually how we connect, being outside. I often think your connection is perhaps more with nature and mine is more with exercise and physical movement. But I think the connection bit, the nature bit and the physical movement are just a lovely trio, aren't they?
They really are. They're a combination which I never take for granted. The fact that we can walk in nature or simply be outside, as in not everybody can access nature easily or even be able to walk outside freely for whatever reason. And I think for me, I'm in partnership with nature. Nature has a lot to teach me. I've got a lot to learn from nature, but also being outside in conversation, either with myself, thinking something through, or being in conversation with another person, be that in person physically, side by side, or virtually. I'm having a conversation with a previous podcast guest later on today, and we've agreed to have that as a virtual walk and talk with Asad Duna, who you met on Walking Partnerships Day.
Yes, I remember walking and talking with Asad, and I know you'll have a great conversation.
Looking forward to it. And what would be great to know about you, Jenny, is why the things that we're going to explore in our conversation today really matter to you, and who are the people and the places and the key experiences that have shaped you and made connection and belonging and mental, emotional, physical well-being and social health so important to you?
That is such a great question and such a big question as well. And in thinking about it, I'll probably go back to the beginning, thinking about childhood, I was incredibly fortunate. I grew up in a very stable, loving and secure family in Nottinghamshire. My mum's from Scotland, my dad was from Kent. I had very strong relationships with my family unit. I think just having that stability, I love that. I then went to secondary school in the nearby town afterwards, and the stability of having those friendships and a strong family unit and a strong connection with the community there. My mum and dad were and still are very much community contributors, whether it's through the church or sports clubs and social groups. My dad was a solicitor, my mum was a nurse. So a real strong sense of values, contributing to the community, doing the right thing, having a really big network of relationships. I went on to university and I just got there and I found my tribe. There was just something really special about that experience.
How did you know they were your tribe?
Oh, how do you know someone's your tribe? There's a kind of intangible feeling, a sense of belonging, a sense of shared values. And it's interesting because I wasn't unhappy at my secondary school. I'd had a good time there, but there was something about an opening out, meeting a broader, more diverse group of people. And I think what was also lovely about it was that experience of being at university, certainly in the way I did it, in living away, being in a halls of residence and then living with a group of 7, where it was so immersive that you built deeper bonds with people. The halls of residence, sitting and having dinner with a group of friends every day. Looking back now, what a treat. Freedom, independence, the rituals of daily connection, which were just woven into how things were. And then living in the shared house, you naturally have a lot of shared experiences because you're all together all the time. So perhaps it was as much about the way of living as the people, as I'm describing it to you now.
I think so. And I think that experience of living with others and therefore having to work things out, for you, it was a really bonding experience. And I'm imagining that you've stayed friends with some of the people that you met there. They were your tribe. And I'm curious for people who perhaps are listening and haven't yet found their tribe, that sense of being seen and seeing others for who they are, and what you've described as a sense of belonging. And I wonder what facilitates that sense of belonging for those of us who might still be looking for it.
Yeah, I think there's something about trying different things on in that respect. And what I mean by that is I've had plenty of instances where I've not found my tribe. And I've been in places. I remember being at campsite career for 3 months in France and living with a group of people I just didn't feel I fitted in with. I have tried and continue to try to put myself in lots of different situations with lots of different groups of people. So if I think about all of the groups and communities I'm part of, there's actually quite a lot at the moment. So I've been part of a networking group with local women. I go to a local co-working group and there's a community there. I'm part of a Toastmasters group, which meets a couple of times a month in person. And I don't find tribe naturally. It's quite a special thing. And it's not like I find it naturally in all of those places, but by leaning in to and trying on lots of different groups of people and types of people and ways of being together as well, you have a much higher chance of finding that. And I think there's something important also about the shared experience that creates, as you said, reflecting on the university experience, that creates those bonds. Because if I think now about the smartphone-free childhood volunteering that I'm doing, there's a small team of us who are organising a community panel event. And we are now in contact pretty much daily on WhatsApp, sharing logistics and what's going on and advertising and how many tickets that we've sold and what have you. And that shared purpose and shared experience, we might all be very different in terms of our backgrounds, but we're all parents in our local community with a shared purpose to change the culture around children and smartphones. And that is bonding in itself.
So there's something about having a shared purpose for listeners and for leaders, finding that shared purpose and working towards it together, especially coming from very different, diverse backgrounds, but having this shared purpose and passion for connection, for real bonding and belonging. But what I'm also struck by is we can have multiple belongings. So we belong to different groups, different, as you do, different communities inside and outside of work, in which we may not have the same kind of feeling of tribe, but we have these multiple belongings.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's something, isn't there, in social theory about looking after your loose connections and your deep connections. And a bit of both is important. It is important to us as humans that we have at least a few people who can be our trusted. So paying attention to those relationships or growing those relationships if they're not there is important. Nurturing the weaker ties, saying hello to the postman, asking the person in your local coffee shop how their day's been, talking to your neighbours and knowing them, that sort of anchors us in that sense of community and belonging wherever we might live or work. It's all of the wiring that underpins how we operate on a day-to-day basis that's also really important.
And that speaks to, for me, the place for small connections, those everyday connections with people who you've mentioned we say hello to in the coffee shop, or we just simply say hello and may never see again. How meaningful those moments can be and how important they are to the person and to ourselves as we go through our day. And whilst you're all about having meaningful conversation, you're also highlighting the importance of what sometimes might be seen as small talk, those small connections, the hello, the smile, the nod are really important. So there's a distinction between small talk and small connection. So we can have a small connection which can have a huge impact. It takes me right back to some of my early training in transactional analysis and Eric Burns' very popular book, What Do You Say After You Say Hello? For me, a seminal book in my 20s, because I did struggle with what do I say after I've said hello, because I've never been particularly good at small talk conversations, which are more than, I've always considered myself to be somebody who is a little bit shy in being able to have easy conversation.
There's something different about small talk versus just thanking someone or sharing in a kind of frustration. Oh, this queue's so long. Is it always like this? Oh no, I've just got this parcel to drop off. And then, oh, I sell on Vinted. Oh, I do too. It's that sort of thing. Actually, it brightens my day if I have those sorts of interactions. I haven't just stood in the queue and looked at my phone. I've actually seen the lady who's struggling in front of me with her 20 parcels.
And that's a choice, isn't it? You have in that moment, and you talk about intentionality, I have a choice about whether I connect with, even briefly, hopefully the queue is not too long, but connect with the person next to me about their parcel or whatever, versus staying in my own world where I'm connecting via my smartphone digitally, potentially with somebody I know, love, or whatever. But nevertheless, I'm not connecting in the immediate surroundings with the people I'm with in that moment.
Yeah, exactly. And a big thing with the smartphones is role modeling to our children how we want them to be, telling them to come off and then being glued to our own ones.
I know. This is what we've got to pay attention to, isn't it?
It's exactly what we've got to pay attention to. And I read a brilliant article actually from a psychologist who's got a couple of children, and she was saying that she gave a great tip, I thought, which was when you are on your phone, because as grown-ups, there's a whole load of stuff that we do on our phone. Often, if I'm on my phone, I might be signing the children up to their football coaching and just making the payment. I might be doing the Tesco shop. I don't really use social media very much, actually. I will definitely drift into scrolling on LinkedIn. But I will then say to the children, I'm just doing the Tesco shop. So I'm making a point of saying, I'm not choosing this over you right now. I'm doing a Tesco shop for the family. Oh, is there anything you want? Do you want to come and have a look? Trying to then bring them in and just give them that insight as to what I'm doing and the reason for that.
I think that's really great. That speaks to signposting, and it's something which I talk about with leaders and their teams a lot, is signposting, especially when you're a leader and people are watching you all the time and making up stories and reading your every move, as we do about each other. Signposting what you're doing. For example, I'm taking notes on my phone, I'm not doing my emails, might be something which somebody would say, which is very reassuring, because I want people to take notes and jot things down. Obviously, I don't want people in a team experience to be scrolling through LinkedIn or doing their emails. But that kind of signposting, which is you're saying to your children, I'm doing the order, come and have a look and see what you would like. So you're not only signposting, but you're also inviting them to participate in something. And I think that's something which I know is important to you, that we're hyper-connected in one way, but we're under-bonded. So how can we be connected, do our order, but at the same time be bonding in the moment with whoever or whatever is in our immediate environment?
Yeah, exactly. On that, my son, he's 13, he plays Fortnite sometimes, the game, online. And I said to my husband when he started to play Fortnite, one of us is going to have to get in on this with him, because we need to understand how the game works, the controls, the settings, so that you can have it so it's open and anyone around the world can connect with you and talk to you, which clearly we didn't want. If there's no controls, children can be left quite vulnerable. So he then did get involved in playing the game. I think the point is, and this is something I've learned about the whole tech journey, is with children, you need to get on the bus with them. Look at things together. Oh, what are you looking at on your screen at the moment? Who are you following? Oh, that's interesting. What are they doing then? Show interest so that when they do, if my son then wins that game, he'll go, oh, Dad, this has happened. And that creates a shared experience and bond. My husband's part of that world. He can celebrate with him and go, oh, well done. It's just a good principle that they are then sharing the experience. And then when something does go wrong, they can come to us, hopefully more readily, because things might go wrong along the way. We can't protect every eventuality.
Yeah. And through one of you being alongside your son and having the shared experience, you also know what to look out for and what might be a potential threat and where they might be vulnerable, but also can share in the fun.
And I'd add to that, I have not got all this worked out. I'm sharing some examples of me on my best day. There's a curiosity. I've maybe put my phone down for the day, but I'm still worrying. My mind is still thinking, oh, I wonder if that's going to come through, or I wonder if that, I don't know, anything I might have been expecting, wanting to check, because we are all affected by the dopamine loop, that sort of anticipation of a reward of a text or an email or a WhatsApp or whatever it is, but not wanting it at the same time, because who wants more messages? There's a chemical, there's a physical thing going on in our bodies, which is making us crave that digital connection, that somebody's contacted us. Many of us are. You're thinking, this is time. And I've found myself doing the same thing, thinking, oh, I can just do this while I watch this film, but having to go, no, come on, just be in it, which does need to, for me, I have to just go and put my phone somewhere else. It is a different room, as you suggested. If it's next to me, no chance.
Extraordinary, isn't it? The journey we've all been on from a time when, certainly when I was a child, I look back to for example, my grandparents' phone, what I think of now as it was a Bakelite phone. It was a kind of plastic, and the phone was in the hallway in the house. If you had a phone, and not everybody did, of course, it was attached by a cord. So there was no wandering around chatting. I remember my grandparents leaving the room to take a call or to make a call, and the calls were very brief. They were always very short, more transactional in that way. And I look back and I think that is extraordinary, to think back that I have that memory of them and how they were in their world.
Do you think, Annie, that is because all of their more meaningful conversations they saw each other in person? There was so much more in-person stuff. They would go knock on somebody's door or call in for them or ask, and then the phone was just a sort of shortcut just to iron out a logistic. Or what do you think?
I think they belong to a number of different communities, is what I think. And whether they had meaningful conversations with people in those communities, I don't know. What it has me think about for us today, and something I think a lot about, is because we live in a digitally wired world, when we do bring people together in organisations for an away day, a conference, the whole way we think about these days, I encourage leaders to think about them differently and to think about them as days for human connection, for meaningful conversation. The opportunity of bringing people together is an opportunity not to go through a slide deck, a big conversation, for people to meet each other in person, to shake hands if they shake hands, to look each other in the eye, to be together physically in the same environment, in the same place, and have a shared experience. So this is something I'm very excited whenever I talk with leaders, that I would love to help leaders to think differently more about away days and opportunities that we can create for people to be in the same room together, having meaningful conversations. And so much of that depends on the questions we ask, the why we're here, the shared purpose that you spoke about at the beginning of our conversation, and recognising we're part of this community that is work, that is this organisation, this group, and how important those connections are, but that we have to feed them, nourish them.
Yes, exactly. And I can vouch for the fact that, having been some of the walks that you and Lucy and Nats have facilitated, that you can go in thinking, I don't know if I've got time for this today, but you know that you're going to come away feeling uplifted. There's something special about the energetic connection you get from being in person with people. And you are great at facilitating that space where people can feel safe and be a bit vulnerable as well. Just going around the room and sharing how people are arriving. It's a question that I often ask at the beginning of my coaching sessions to say, how are you arriving today? Because that is often going to set the tone. Of course, I'm really cross, actually. I've just had a really difficult conversation or email or meeting. Actually, let's just process that for 5 minutes before we try and do anything. It's important for people to be able to share that.
I think so. It is that, how are you arriving is such a great question, isn't it? And even if we don't ask it out loud, Jenny, I think there's something in asking ourselves as we arrive somewhere and show up as a leader is, how am I arriving? And that kind of noticing and connecting with ourselves, and therefore being aware of myself in relation to others. So sometimes there's opportunity, like you've just shared, space is given for us to share how we've arrived. But as a practice, I think it's a great one for us all to ask ourselves, how am I arriving? And just noticing, and then possibly thinking about our human need, as in, what do I need right now? I need to breathe more deeply, or I need to reach out to you, have a conversation. We haven't seen each other, or whatever that is. But it's such a powerful question. You're talking about the walking partnership days, and we think very carefully about the theme for the day and the time of year and the terrain that we'll be walking in, and also the questions that are emerging for us in our leadership and lives that may resonate with people. And so that facilitates the meaningful conversation, the deeper human connection.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what's so lovely about those sessions, in that nobody has to go through that small talk. There is a loose, very gentle structure to the day. Pair up with someone, and here's a question to consider, which immediately gets beyond the, how long did it take you to get here today? Or how do you know so-and-so? Let's give each other permission to go straight into what's emerging for you this spring, or what do you need to let go of, or any number of the great questions that you surface, because that is the stuff you and I are immersed in, these sorts of questions regularly. But for many people, and certainly I remember when I was rushing about in my day job at EY, I didn't have time to reflect on these sorts of questions, or I didn't make time, because it's quite hard to think through those things on your own. But having someone else walk alongside you and listen and hear that, it is so precious. So I would encourage anybody listening to try that way of being on, and to follow collaboration equation and things like the walking partnerships days, because they are super powerful opportunities. We can spend our whole day seemingly connected. We might be on back-to-back Teams calls. We've dropped our children at school, said hello to a couple of parents. We've bumped into someone that we haven't seen for a while in the lunch queue. We've sat amongst a whole load of people on the train. We've got back. We've run our children around. I'm talking very much as a parent, because that's my reality. Run somebody to various clubs, got back down feeling like I've spent all day with people. I am connected, but actually not, because it's just been quite transactional. It's not been about any thoughts or feelings, or talking about those and feeling seen and heard and understood, which is what we all need. We don't need it all day, every day, but we need to have some of that sprinkled throughout our life, don't we?
A question for listeners could be, where could I have someone feel more seen, heard and understood? Recognising that human need, and having listened to our conversation, and as we come to the close of it, just thinking that we're sharing a number of questions here, that how are you arriving? Where could I put my focus and energy that would have somebody else feel seen, heard and understood? I remember somebody saying to me, I was travelling with them for work, and they said, you have a knack of looking everybody in the eye And I do seek that kind of connection in the moment. And through having travelled a lot and worked far and wide, I think that's helped me to practice. And it's something we haven't mentioned, but I think it is about practicing asking some of these questions and practicing giving time for people to think and to arrive. I'm a big fan of helping people to think, be that on their feet or sitting quietly or in a paired conversation, maybe walking without talking for a few minutes, or at the beginning of a Teams meeting, just taking a few minutes to think and to think about what it is we're here to talk about, why we're here, and think too about participating. Again, something you've spoken about, like your husband participating in Fortnite, a game which I haven't heard of and I'm now going to look up after our conversation. So a couple of questions I'd like to ask you. One is there anything we haven't touched on that you would really like to share with listeners? Because you thought a lot about our conversation. It was an opportunity for you to reflect and pull some threads of your life and leadership together. Is there anything that we haven't threaded into our conversation?
Thank you. It's a good question. I think what I know to be true is that the quality of our relationships is the biggest predictor of our happiness. So if you look around you and you realize that your relationships are not where you want them to be, or they've slipped, or, they're not where you need them to be, then, that could be a real key to unlock something.
I love that. And it's such a lovely encouragement to people. I'm going to ask you about your encouragements in a minute, but I also want to ask you, when you look at your relationships, given what you've just said, what's the conversation that you're going to have following our conversation today, and with who, that will help build the quality of the relationship? Not that it isn't already a quality relationship, but that you want to expand the quality of that relationship.
Yeah, I think it's probably with my children. What's really important to me is that they are growing up with the ability to have a good conversation and to have great relationships and develop their social skills. And I'll be honest, I sat around the dinner table last night with my daughter. She's 11. I could barely get a word out of her. It was so soul destroying. Tell me about your day. I'm trying different ways. I said, what would you give it out of 10? So it can be really challenging sometimes to get them in conversation. And what I've learned helps is actually the dinner table can be a challenging bit because they're just, you're face to face and they're eating and maybe not wanting to share too much and tired. But if you can do something with them, if I'm throwing a ball, my son is obsessed with cricket, football, etc. So he loves catching. Just throw a ball with him for 5 minutes in the kitchen. I will get a lot more out of him from doing that. But I think, to your point, I try, when they won't talk to me and answer my questions and I can't get into them, I will just talk to them about my day. So I will be sharing with them, I had a really interesting conversation today. It's all about connection and just making them aware that this is a thing. This is a thing to pay attention to.
Lovely. Thank you, Jenny. And wish you well with that conversation today. And of course, to them listening to our conversation when it's released, what are your 3 key encouragements to listeners and leaders?
Number 1, know what your social needs are. I am a Myers-Briggs ESFJ, so I get my energy from being with other people. So I have to dial that up and make sure I've got plenty of in-person time. It's going to be different for everyone because we're all different, but we do all need that belonging, love, connection. just taking some time to reflect on what your social needs are, thinking about times when you were really happy and thriving. So I think that's a good starting point to reflect. Then better conversations, braver, more courageous questions, getting beyond the how are you to what's going on for you at the moment, what you're feeling excited about, what's something you're working on that you might like to test or share, just opening up the possibility to learn something about that person, to get beyond small talk and into something which you can find out a bit more about that person and that person feels seen and heard, and just see if you can expand a bit more and deepen that relationship. And then thirdly, I think be intentional about technology. If you're a parent, do follow the smartphone-free childhood movement, especially if you're a primary school parent. You might not agree with everything they are doing, but before you go out and buy a mobile phone or what have you, as often happens when they move to secondary, do it by making an informed choice. Read the materials on their brilliant website, really great resources. And if you're not a parent, doesn't matter. Think about how your digital world might be impacting your real world. So on that note, I will close it there. And they're all encouragements to myself as well.
Thank you for sharing. And absolutely in the spirit of here's what I'm trying and here's what I'm practicing. So thank you for sharing so openly about what you're trying and practicing. And for people who, having listened to our conversation, how best to get in touch with you and indeed with smartphone-free childhood movement?
Yeah, with me, either via LinkedIn or my website. You can check out what I do there, which is jennylatham.com. The Smartphone-Free Childhood website will also be in the show notes as well. But if you just Google Smartphone-Free Childhood, you'll see it. It is a wonderful website. And there are WhatsApp groups for local parents up and down the country. You can join, you can find out what's going on, and you can meet like-minded people if it's something you're interested in. We're all struggling as parents to work out what are sensible boundaries, because we don't really know what good looks like. We haven't grown up with this and we're navigating it for ourselves too. So that is a fantastic resource I would really encourage anyone with younger children to have a look at. Empower them through conversation to put in healthy boundaries and help keep you honest too.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jenny. Thank you to you, the listener, for listening to our conversation. Do follow Jenny, do follow Smartphone Free Childhood. And if you'd like to listen to other leaders in conversation with me, Annie Townend, please go to my website, annietownend.com. To listen to Finding Your Collaborative Edge with Lucy Kidd and I, do go to our website, Collaboration Equation. And also, if you'd like to find out more about walking partnerships, we hold, Natalie, Shering, Lucy Kidd and I, 3 of these days per year. And our next day will be in June. And I'd love to extend the invitation to you if you're listening and would like to find out more. Please do email me on annie@annietownend.com. A huge thank you to Schmogus Media for the wonderful production of the podcast and for the marketing of the podcast. Louisa Penny from Penny Writing. Do follow me on LinkedIn, Annie Townend, and I look forward to connecting with you. Thank you for listening, and thank you, Jenny, for sharing so openly.
Thank you, Annie.